Back to another edition of NASCAR DFS Preview. I'm AustYn with the Sports Chief, and we are heading into the championship weekend, the season finale 500 at Phoenix Raceway. How original, right? So we have our final 4 drivers that are participating in the NASCAR playoff finale, I guess you can say. And the winner of that, or the highest finishing driver of that, will come home as the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series champion. So, one thing to look at this week, of course, this year has been wild. It's been crazy, especially in the DFS world. Every week we look at history. We look at past performance at the track. We look at the tire model. We look at the pit stalls. We look at everything like that, and it comes down to the end this year at Phoenix. We've raced at Homestead for, it seems like, almost 20 years probably in the championship race. And we changed it up this year, of course. And we did see the truck race. Sheldon Creed came away with the victory in that one. It's going to be different for sure. 312 laps, 9 sets of tires, the same tire model that they used at New Hampshire this year, at Richmond earlier, and at Phoenix earlier this year. So we have those 3 races to look at in terms of performance. That's what I'm looking at for sure, just to see where they finished in those events. The way they did their pricing this week, it looked like to me that you're going to have a lot of people fall for their gut, starting position, and things of that nature. But DraftKings sure does know what they're doing. I definitely went in a hardcore analytical mode for this week. Put all my effort and energy into this because we won't have racing until February at the Daytona 500. So let's just go ahead and see what DraftKings has to offer for us. So at the top, we have Martin Truex Jr. at 11-4. Starting in 13th. Kevin Harvick starting in 11th at 11,100. Brad Keselowski starting in 3rd at 10.8. Chase Elliott on the pole at 10.6. Denny Hamlin starting in 4th at 10.3. And rounding out our 10K drivers, fittingly, is Joey Logano. They finally put him there. Starting in 2nd at 10,000. We have 6 10K drivers to look at. Most of your people that are doing their lineups this week, they're going to want to get at least 2 championship drivers in the lineup. And while I don't think that's a bad option, it's a little different this year. Last year, I probably would have told you that, yeah, you do need 2 drivers in your lineup. But with Phoenix, starting position is key. But, I mean, your highest priced drivers in this week's event is Truex and Harvick. So it's really tough to go with 2 drivers just because their starting spots are really, really attractive there at 11 and 13. In terms of past history at Phoenix, Kevin Harvick's hard to beat. He's got an average finish of 9th. He has 9 wins. Then you go to like Jimmy Johnson, of course. He's at 10.4 as his average finish, and he's got 4 wins. Jimmy, of course, this will be his last race, more than likely as a full-time Cup driver. I believe he may come back and run a Daytona 500. It wouldn't shock me even if he ran next year's Daytona 500. But other than that, he's pretty much done. And he could just call it quits, you know. Jimmy's a little different than the other past drivers we've had, you know, in the series. I don't think he's quite like Mark Martin or, you know, Jeff Gordon even came back for a few. And depending on the circumstances, Jimmy may come back. Joey Logano, his average finish is 14.3. He has 2 wins. So does Denny Hamlin. He's got 2 wins. Kyle Busch actually has 3 wins. Kyle's average finish is 10.5. Might as well say 11th. Denny Hamlin's 11.3. And Joey Logano's average finish is 14th. I may have said that already. But so Joey's not quite as good here in terms of the other drivers. Chase Elliott's average finish is 13th. Brad Keselowski's average finish is 13th or 13.5. So Joey's right there with those 2, honestly. Chase Elliott's got the first pit stall. Really outperformed my expectations last week. Did not expect him to go into Martinsville and dominate the way he did. But that locked him into the Final 4, and Kevin Harvick was on the outside looking in. If you'd have told me that Kevin Harvick wouldn't make the Final 4, I probably would have called you crazy. But again, starting positions, they used to qualify, and even if you had your final 4 drivers, most of the time they didn't qualify 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are this year. And I'm one that I really hope they bring qualifying back next year in practice, because that helps us in terms of DFS. it has a little more skill to it rather than just winging it. So, all right. Let's just go ahead and this was my analytical strategy. So 312 laps, not 500 like Martinsville. Laps led are key. You get a quarter of a point per lap led, of course, as you may know. So you don't have to pick drivers that lead, or you don't have to predict a driver that's going to win and lead all the laps, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's more like a mile-and-a-half track in terms of the laps. Phoenix is mislabeled a short track because of the way it drives. It's actually, bigger than Richmond. It's bigger than those tracks. It's just a flat. Reminds you kind of like New Hampshire, but it's a lot more speed than that. You carry more in the corner, but it is a momentum track. Most of the track can be used. You can go all the way down to the inside wall and some of those, like the tunnel turns and things like that. I mean, you can really use the track up. So it's just totally different compared to the other tracks. Joey Logano won the Phoenix race earlier this season using the same tire model. Brad Keselowski won New Hampshire and Richmond using the same tire. So obviously those two will be very popular in terms of betting. And Denny Hamlin will be more popular in terms of DFS just because of where he's starting. Denny hasn't won a championship, neither has Chase. Joey Logano, of course, won one, and Brad did as well. It's been a little while since Brad won his, but he's back at it again. So here's what I did. I took those 3 races. I averaged them up in terms of average finish. Most of the field I actually calculated. Those that I felt worthy of calculating. I found some that, they just didn't have a good enough spot to where they're starting. Different factors came into play there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break it down a little more analytical here. So Martin Truex Jr. starting in 13th. Martin Truex Jr. had an average finish of 12.3. Truex, I believe his average finish at Phoenix is 16th, so he's just kind of average. But Truex, not in the playoffs, starting in 13th. Average finish is 12.3. You get about a +1 EV, right? Kevin Harvick is starting in 11th. His average finish in the 3 races, New Hampshire, Phoenix, and Richmond, was 4.67, so 5th. +6 in EV, which 5th place gives you 39 points in DraftKings. You get a point per pass. That's 6 more. That gives him a grand total of around 45 in terms if he doesn't lead a lap, if he doesn't have a fastest lap, which is totally absurd. I bet Harvick will at least have one fastest lap. And his past history is really good, so that is really, really good. Brad Keselowski, again, 4.33 in those 3 races, which is really good. So, Joey Logano had the best average finish in those 3 races. Of course, he did win Phoenix. His average finish in the 3 races combined was 2.67. He's starting in 2nd. I know he loses a point there. So it's basically 3rd. So he's 41 in 3rd place with the points. -1, that's 40. That's still really good. And he's the lowest price playoff driver. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick Joey Logano. He is my pick. Ultimately, doing this lineup, he would be my choice to win the championship. I really like Joey in this race. I actually like a lot of the Ford drivers, just to give you a little spoiler there. But I really like his spot there. And if we scroll down here, Jimmy Johnson starting in 26th. He's at 9.3, just too much. I know his average finish at this track is 10.4, but he hasn't really performed that well in the 3 races that use the same tire, so I'm not really considering him. William Byron starting in 25th. He'll be pretty highly owned just because of where he's starting, and rightfully so. His average finish here is 14th, 14.4 to be exact, in 5 starts. His average finish in the 3 races that I calculated, New Hampshire, Phoenix, and Richmond, was 14th. That's a plus-minus of 11, and that would give us 30. He'd get 30 points for finishing 14th. Plus 11 is 41. He's just as valuable as Joey Logano. So I'm going to go ahead and slide William Byron in there. Right? Tyler Reddick, he's starting in 21st. Pretty good value. He's a great pick, honestly. He finished 10th and 11th, I believe, and then he had an outlier of a wreck at one of the races. So his average finish in the 3 was 18th. Just I couldn't pull the trigger. That's probably where I would predict him to finish, around 18th. So plus 3, 18th spot's 26 points. It's like 29. He doesn't even get 30. So, Byron, if he finishes 14th, even if he started 14th, that's 30. So that's your value there. Eric Jones, he probably will be decently owned as well, starting in 14th, and I just didn't go that route. And I'm gonna go ahead and scroll down and analyze the bottom drivers. So John Hunter Nemechek has 3 top 10s and 3 starts in the Xfinity Series. His performances at the 3 tracks that we're accounting was not good. It was in the upper 20s. Couldn't pull the trigger. One driver that really surprised me was Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece, has not really performed that great at Phoenix, but, in terms of the 3 drivers, he had an average finish of 3 tracks, excuse me. He had an average finish of 18th. That would be a plus minus of 6. 18th gets you 26. It's 32 points. That's pretty high, honestly, for a driver that cheap. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., average finish in those 3 races, 18th. Starting 20th. That would be plus 2, around 28 points expected value. Michael McDowell is one, he's from Arizona. He'll be pretty chalky too. And he finished well. He finished like 16th in one of the races, but he was in the upper 20s in the others. Not enough consistency for me to go that route. And I'm trying to win a tournament. This is a tournament lineup, just to warn you. It went pretty risky, honestly. But you got to do that to win the big money. So this is, I'm not going Michael McDowell. There's a driver, a couple spots up there, Cole Custer, who's starting in 15th. And I made the comment earlier on in the year, I think Cole Custer is one of your top 12 drivers, truthfully. He made the playoffs, won a race. Cole has performed very consistently for a rookie. And I think he's got he's going to be a cup driver for a while just because of his consistency. Cole Custer starting in 15th spot. In the 3 races, his average finish is 10.33. He had a finish of 9th at Phoenix earlier on in the year. 10th place, really? That's 5 spots, and 10th place will give you 34, so he's worth about 39 points in value. Not much less than Joey Logano, so I'm going to pull the trigger definitely on Cole Custer, and that will save us a little bit on salary and to get the driver that you really want at 8,200. Scrolling up here, Chris Buescher is another one. I feel that he's going to be very chalky. I don't like the Roush Fenway cars in this race for some reason. I do like the Roush engine program with the Fords, but I don't like Chris Buescher. And I think Chris Buescher, you're looking at 20, 30, at least probably 30% ownership. He's priced a little high, truthfully. He's been priced in the 6 range this year, but with that starting spot, they're trying to get you. And I would not go with Chris Buescher in a tournament. Now, cash, wouldn't be afraid to do it. Still wouldn't do it, but watch out for that. That's all I'm saying. Christopher Bell has ran really well as of late. He's in 17th. And actually, Christopher Bell, one thing to note about him, he ran really well at New Hampshire. Had an issue on pit road, I believe. He had a penalty, and that kicked him way back. So Christopher Bell's a decent option. AustYn Dillon's going to be pretty chalky. He's starting in 18th. Dillon is a top 12 driver, kind of like Cole Custer. But AustYn Dillon's average finish at these 3 races that matter, to me today anyway, was 17.67. It's about where he's starting. That's good enough to give you about 26 points. So why would I pay $500 more for Dillon? In theory and analytics, he's going to be right around that price point. I can't do it. So I'm going with Cole Custer over Dillon for sure. And, now we're kind of back to where we were talking a minute ago. Eric Almirola and Clint Boyer. So I really like Stuart Haas drivers today, just to give you a heads up here. Cole Custer has an average finish of 10.33 in those 3 tracks. Whenever you have a team, you've got Kevin Harvick. His average finish is 4.67. Custer's 10th. Clint Boyer, average finish in those 3 races, 11th. So now we're waiting on that 4th car, right? That's Eric Almirola. So Clint Boyer starting in 9th. 11th, that's -2. You know, that's around a 33 point. Yeah, so you get 33 points for finishing 11th. He'd -2 to be 31. That's not terrible, but he's right. He's a little expensive. He's more than Eric Almirola. Eric Almirola's average finish actually at this track is 14.9. Pretty good considering he raced for Richard Petty for a lot of years. He has the last pit stall. So coming on the pit road, he's got that first pit stall, which is pretty good. Jimmy used to pick that all the time. In the 3 races, his average finish is 7.67. Yes, you just heard that. 7.67. That is better than Denny Hamlin. That's better than Kyle Busch. That's better than Martin Truex. It's just as good as Chase Elliott, who is 7th. Eric Almirola is a steal. And look at that, 21 top 10s. He's one of the more consistent drivers that we have in NASCAR. Going Eric Almirola. He is a steal. There we go. Man, I was trying to click it there. But Eric Almirola is a steal at $7,800. I'm going with Eric Almirola. We got the Fords there. We got William Byron and the Hendrick cars. I mean, we got top-tier programs here at $8,450. So now here's the hard decision. I could go down here. I could pick gut. I go, oh, Michael McDowell is my pick. 10-6. That gives me Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. Bingo. Game over, right? Not really. I don't feel comfortable about that. You could go Ricky Stenhouse, and you'd be in the same boat. You'd have 10-7. You couldn't get up to Ford Keselowski. Keselowski is going to be the highest owned driver. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. Brad's performed way too well at the tracks that matter, and all these guys that do these lineups, they're going to know that. You're going to see Brad Keselowski and probably Denny Hamlin highly owned. I don't know if people will go Truex and Harvick. I'm really hoping not. I hope they don't. Just to make it interesting, but... John Hunter Nemechek is the cheapest driver that you should even be considering, and you can afford any driver that you want. You can get Truex, you can get Harvick, and I don't mind this strategy at all because I do think John Hunter Nemechek is capable of finishing in the top 20. He was honestly around where he's at, and those numbers are not very attractive to me. You're looking at probably about 20-some points, really, in terms of his past performance. So what I'm doing, okay, Truex is your most valuable driver up top, but I'm going with Kevin Harvick. So he's starting in 11th. I just can't get the fact out of my head that his average finish was 4.67. His average finish here is 9th. He has 9 wins at the track. He's got 9 wins this year. He is really good at Phoenix. And if he made that Final Four, he probably would have been my pick to win the championship. And I don't think he's going to let up any. I think he'll be pedal to the metal. He'll be going hard. And starting in 11th, I don't know. Has he started outside that top 10 threshold since we did this whole new qualifying method? I don't know. Maybe. But I really like Kevin Harvick. He's got an empty pit stall ahead of him. Another thing, interesting thing, Joey Logano's got an empty pit stall ahead of him, so he's got a pretty good way to peel out, too. Phoenix is a tight pit road, but not like Martinsville last week. Going with Kevin Harvick, and then, if math serves me right, yes, that gives me Ryan Preece. Again, Ryan Preece has an average finish of 18th in those 3 races. I can't go against that. I think he's got these tracks down pat. I think the team has it down pat. I could see Ryan Preece getting a top 20. And I don't pick him very often, but all of my drivers, aside from Joey Logano, have a positive EV for this week. And I couldn't go any better than that. Brad Keselowski is not starting better than where he finished. And, you know, this is my lineup, folks. This is what I'm going with. So, yeah, let me just clear it out here. In terms of a cash game, let me just go ahead and do that. So if you're doing a cash game strategy, I think you have to have Denny Hamlin in your lineup. You're probably wanting to go William Byron and Tyler Reddick, and you probably want to go Austin Dillon. And then as far as the bottom here, you probably go Michael McDowell. That affords you Jimmy Johnson. That's your ideal cash game lineup. And you can't go up to get... I'm saying that's the most positive that you can do. You got a top-tier driver. And your other guys are going to finish probably above where they started in this race. Starting, hadn't, it's not past tense. Anyway, so pure talent. I mean, how can you go against Kyle Busch? You go a stack of those three: Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Jones, and you could go Chris Buescher for where he's starting. That's pretty good. And just pick Michael McDowell, and then you got Clint Bowyer, Eric Almirola, Austin Dillon. Dillon's probably your better value there. It's not a bad lineup, just to be honest with you. That's not what we're going with here. We're rounding out, and we do some math here today. So let's just go ahead and do it. So we got Kevin Harvick is our top pick. Ultimately, I could see Kevin winning this race. It's not far-fetched, but I just like his positive placement in terms of where he's starting. Joey Logano, going with this strategy, I probably am going to predict that Joey Logano win the championship. I know I bashed Chase. I didn't really mean to bash him, but I didn't think it was his year this year. But I like Joey Logano in this race. I've just got that gut feeling. And they're both Fords there. I really like the Ford engine program at this track, especially in the short track program. And this was the best option I could get. So, yeah, Joe Logano, and then I'm going to go with William Byron solely because of where he's starting. Average finish of 14th. It's hard to pass that up. Eric Almirola starting in 10th. Again, his finishing position is better than where he's starting. He's starting 10th, and people are going to shy away from that, but I really like it. Going with Cole Custer starting in 15th. Again, he's right where I want him there. Hopefully he can finish better than that. He's shown that he can. So, rounding out our lineups, Ryan Preece at 5'8". There you have it. Harvick, Logano, Byron, Almirola, Custer, and Preece. So, yep, that's your lineup. It's going to win everything. Best of luck to you. Do your own math as far as figuring out what you can do there. A lot of people are going to go gut. And I'm sick and tired of going gut, just to be honest with you. I know I went Logano based on gut, but not really. I mean, 2.67, that's hard to argue. In 3 races, that's literally like winning the race every time. So, anyway. Check us out on Twitter at TheSportsChief. Check us out on our website at TheSportsChief.com. This will be our last NASCAR video of the year, but we look forward to coming back, Lord willing, next year at the Daytona 500. Also, big props to my boy Nick Ottinger. I've known Nick for a very long time, and the fact he went out there and won that NASCAR championship, the NASCAR championship for William Byron, that was awesome. I know that's a big game changer for him. It's great to see them getting exposure. I did iRacing, but I was not quite that good. But it's awesome to see him win it, so congrats, Nick. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns on this video or anything that we do on the Sports Chief, comment down at the bottom, hit the bell notification. That way you know the video gets up. Maybe we'll put out some more videos, who knows, later on in the year after NASCAR, post-NASCAR. So, yeah, best of luck to you in the season finale 500 at Phoenix Raceway, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, all that good stuff. Happy New Year's, and we'll be coming back after Valentine's Day at the Daytona 500. So, we'll see you later, guys.